All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. You might have done that 4 times, but we'll see. You never really can tell when it actually goes live, but I believe we're live now. So let's get into things. Let me bring something up here. If anyone's out there, let me know that you can hear me and everything is good, and we will get after it. So really want to talk first about kind of the trap of looking into the quick fix method of things, and this is both from a physiological and psychological perspective. I do want to focus a bit more on the mental side of things, but I will briefly touch about the physical side of things as well. But it's just something that I've seen, now it's been over years of coaching people, something that I've seen come up from people a little bit more frequently who have lost weight and kept it off for a long time, and kind of the process they've gone through and what they see with other people and some of the struggles they had. So we will do that. So anybody out there, am I live? All right. Thanks, Nicholas. All right. Never know until somebody gets on here and tells me. I've had a lot of problems in the past before. So anyway, regarding the quick fix, first let's start with the physical side of things and some of the traps that looking at the quick fix can be. And that is basically that your metabolism is going to slow down in a hurry. The quick fix is always going to be some sort of extreme method, generally extremely low calorie, a lot of time, a lot of extra cardio, a lot of extra activity that's going to put you in a huge calorie deficit to try to lose weight really fast. Obviously, we all want fast results, and it's something that we all crave and want, but it's not necessarily the best thing for us, as much as that seems backwards. And good morning. And when we go really low calorie right away, yeah, you're going to lose weight pretty quickly at first, and that's going to be exciting. It's going to be motivating, but there's a few things you need to consider. One is that a lot of that weight, especially in the first week, is just water weight. Your body's holding a lot of water. There's a lot of glycogen in your muscles, things like that. That's going to go away first. So you lose 10 pounds in a week, you can bet that the majority of that is going to be water weight and not body fat, and body fat is what we're really interested in. The other thing is you're probably going to lose more muscle mass, lean body mass. And even if you don't care about having a muscular body, you still want to preserve as much muscle mass as possible when dieting, because it has a very substantial impact on metabolism and just general body composition. Even if you're not looking for that to like totally shredded look, you're going to look better with a bit more muscle and a bit less body fat. The other thing is it's one of these things where your metabolism is going to adapt down. So you need room to make adjustments as your body does adapt. So if you go super low calorie, super high cardio right away, not only are you going to feel, eventually you're going to feel just completely run into the ground, you're going to feel like garbage, it's not going to be sustainable whatsoever. And eventually your body is going to plateau as your body eventually adapts to what you're doing, like it always does. It's just a natural response. Your body's putting up its guard, it's trying to guard against starvation. It doesn't want you to starve to death. Not so great for fat loss, very good for not dying, which is your body's main focus. And as this happens, now that you've been so aggressive right away and things stall out, now where do you go? What do you do to keep the process working? So you want to eat as many calories as possible and do as little activity as possible while seeing reasonable results. Reasonable being, in my mind, around 1% or less of your body weight on average, up to 2% if you're obese. And that's like the faster, higher pace. And the thing is, once your body adapts and you're stuck, that's going to be demotivating. It's going to be really kind of like, it's just going to kind of beat you down mentally, and it's going to feel like it's not worth the effort. I can't do this. I'm not losing weight anyways. What's the point? Then you often go into overeat mode and just kind of binge your face off. You've probably been super restricted, so mentally you're just missing all these foods that you've cut out of your life that you probably didn't need to. And physiologically, your hunger hormones are all jacked up. There's a lot of hormonal adaptations that happen when you diet aggressively, and hunger hormones are one of them. You've got 2 main ones. One is leptin. This decreases as you lose weight, and this has a lot of functions, but one of them is to tell you that you're full. So it helps regulate your appetite. You know, if your leptin's in a good place and you eat a normal meal and you feel full, that's because leptin's doing its job. If you eat and keep eating and you never feel full, your leptin is very low. Right? Then you have another one called ghrelin. This is nicknamed the hunger hormone, and that's because as ghrelin increases, you feel more hungry. And this is a normal response too to low calories and dieting. So you have one hormone telling you that you're hungry, you have another one telling you that you're never full, you feel restricted, it feels like it's not worth the effort. Now you blow out, you gain weight crazy fast, you can easily put on all the weight in a very short amount of time that you lost and go way past that. You, metabolically speaking, will still be in a bad place. It doesn't get fixed right away, it takes time. And a lot of times then you kind of just panic about that, go back into a diet, body doesn't really respond, and it just kind of like triggers this yo-yo behavior that just makes you fatter and fatter and fatter over time. So that's kind of like the physiological trap of not looking at it as a lifestyle and looking at it as, well, I just need to get the weight off as fast as possible so I can be done, which just doesn't exist. You know, it has to be a lifestyle. You're never going to keep the weight off. Permanent results come from permanent change, right? So we got to stop rushing the process and just be okay with however long it's going to take and understand that it's going to come in different phases. Now, that's kind of the physiological side of things, but psychologically, the big thing that I really want to talk about, this came up again, and it happens, a couple times a year at this point now, it seems like, where I have a client who has gone through a pretty long process, and they've now gotten where they wanted to be. Usually they reverse dieted for a long time, cut down, maybe had to go through multiple cycles. Now they've mostly kept the weight off for a long period of time, a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years. And they tell this story, and I love this story, and this will probably relate, and possibly relate to you. And what they say is that when they were reverse dieting, so if you're reverse dieting, pay attention, because this is, or if you need a reverse diet and you're too scared to start, this is going to be good for you. So you go through a reverse diet, right? You're still working hard, you're still, strength training, and you're still monitoring your intake, and you still have to pay attention to things, but you're not going to see the result. That comes later on down the road. Now you see all these other people who are doing the quick fixes and they're losing weight like crazy, and you get really jealous of them, right? Like, well, look at this person. They're doing, XYZ diet and they're losing, 5 pounds a week and everything's going great. And then this person goes, hey, you should do what I'm doing. I'm losing weight like crazy. I know you've been struggling a little bit. You should do this. It's working great. And oh man, that temptation comes in. Oh man, that person's seeing good results and I'm doing nothing but going backwards. Maybe I should do that. But the problem is you do that, right? And then the same thing happens what we just talked about. Now you crash your metabolism, it ends up not being sustainable, and you just repeat that cycle. So thankfully, all right, you don't fall into that, right? You say, no, I'm going to stick in the course. My metabolism's in a bad place. I need this reverse diet. I need to put myself back into a position. I need to do this in a sustainable manner. I need to play the long game. I've tried the crash diets. I've tried all the quick fixes, and it just hasn't worked. I just keep coming back over and over and over again for years. So you stay the course. You reverse diet. You get yourself back into a better place. Now you can start the cut. Now you start seeing good results. Over time, you finally get down to where you want to be. Now you reverse diet back out again. Now you're sustaining all that weight loss. Couple of years have passed at this point, and these people that you were so jealous of when they were losing all the weight when you couldn't lose weight because you were reverse dieting, they've gained the weight back and then some, and they're struggling, and they're asking you, oh, how'd you do it? What did you do? Right? And then you go, oh, well, I had to reverse diet, and I had to spend several months or a year reverse dieting, and I had to be patient, and I had to do it in a sustainable manner and not rush the process. And oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. No, I'm gonna try this quick fix instead, right? And then they just can't repeat that cycle. And now several years pass, and they're continuing to gain and lose the same weight, probably just going backwards, while you've kept the weight off for all that time, or at least the majority of it, and are in a good place. And you're the person that everyone else is wanting to be now, but they can't be because they won't do what you were willing to do, and that's play the long game to finally win. So I hope that helps somebody out there if you're really struggling with it, and especially, I mean, you're going to see it. Whenever you go through this process, you're going to see other people who are doing extreme methods, seeing crazy fast results. It's going to be tempting. You're going to want to join in with them, but you know by now that doesn't work. Maybe in the short term it's great, but in the long run, it doesn't work. The faster you lose in the beginning, the less weight you're going to lose in the long run, because you have no room to go. So let me make sure I didn't have any other notes I wanted to briefly touch on. I think that was pretty much it. That's it. So let's start the Q&A. Hopefully that was helpful. So I got a bunch of questions up front that I'll go into if I don't have any yet. I don't think I do. Good morning. Good morning. Let me get my live stream up here. All right, Spaceboy74, just back on track. That's all you can do, man. Like you said, just use those extra calories to, crush a good workout, and just this extra fuel for the body. And you're only one meal from getting back on track at all times. And the best thing is to look for ways that you can learn and improve from this. So I don't like to look back on things in terms of look back to beat yourself up or feel bad or feel guilty or judge yourself or anything like that. That's not gonna do any good. But if you look back and go, okay, what could I have done differently? How could I have done better? How could I have set myself up for success? What strategies could I possibly have taken that would have improved it? And that's how you learn and grow with anything in life. You learn through your mistakes and failures. Let me move this over a little bit so I'm a little bit out of the way there. So back on track, bud. Haha, will do, buddy. Good morning. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to go to the questions. If you have anything, put them in the chat, but I've got a bunch ahead of time, which is why I like to do this, because otherwise I'd just be sitting here going, anybody got any questions? So let's go to desktop 2. That means nothing to you probably, but we will go through it here. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. Get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of myself for this first question at least. And then we'll do it. Why can't I find it? Sorry, bear with me for a moment. There it is. All right. So, hi Colin, I've gone down from 230 to 200, but I'm still around 22% body fat, and I have lowered my calories enough where I find borderline, where I am borderline comfortable. 1700 now, while I have increased my walking to 20,000 steps this past week. Would me lowering my cardio slowly every week count as a reverse diet, as well as give me the same effect as increasing calories? I don't want to do both right away in case my body adapts negatively, since I'm still fat, and well, you're not fat, but that's a different topic, and need another round or two of cutting, which is very normal. And that's always something to keep in mind too, is like, oftentimes, let me bring myself back up. Most people, I would argue that most people actually do have to go through multiple stages of reversing and dieting to kind of get down where they want to be, and that's okay. The body's just so adaptive, and especially if you have a longer history of dieting and everything, your body's going to fight you more. It's different if it's the first time you've ever tried, but you don't want to get caught up in trying to push past when your body's fighting you too much. So it's a great job, Terrence, in not falling into that and understanding that. So to answer your question, how do I get rid of that? So yes, you can reduce cardio first if you don't want to do both. So most of the time I kind of recommend doing at the same time, increasing some calories, dropping some cardio, but it can be one or the other. It kind of depends on what you want more first. So if you would rather be able to eat more food first, you're going to want to increase calories first. If you'd rather reduce your cardio, have more time and things like that, then you're going to reduce your cardio faster. So you can do a combination of both, or one or the other. It sounds like you want to just start with cardio. That's completely fine. And that way you can make bigger decreases in your cardio to start the process out. But you'll probably want to do a mixture of the two over time, but there's no right or wrong. You can increase calories right away and not decrease cardio at all. You can decrease cardio and not increase calories, or you can do a combination of the two. And then, as always, you just kind of monitor and adjust based on how things are going. So that's completely fine. Now, this next question I was prepared for, and I really liked it. So I've got something prepared, and this is why I like to ask the questions ahead of time too. Sometimes I can prepare ahead of time where I wouldn't be able to be able to give you some good information that I think would be helpful. So the question is, what is long femurs and short torso? I notice I have a tendency to good morning my barbell back squats. I read body limb and torso length impacts the squat. It does. They just said long femurs and short torso. Is there a ratio? To me, it's subjective. Long for me is short for my sister. So it's not really subjective. I mean, a little bit, but it's mostly not subjective. It's mostly objective because it's relative to your overall height. So someone who has the same length of femurs at 5'4" versus 5'9" have completely different levers. And, there isn't necessarily an exact science to say, okay, this means short and this means long. And some people will say, okay, measure from the top of your head down to your hip bone. and then from your hip bone down to the bottom of your feet. And if one is longer than the other, then that probably means you have, like, if your lower half is longer, then you have a longer femur to torso length, or if the upper half is longer, then you have a longer torso to femoral length. But that's not necessarily true either, because it's not just femurs and torso, it's everything. So this video I'm going to play here in a minute will kind of help explain that, but it's also like your tibia length, which is the bone below your knee, because you can have a longer femur and a shorter tibia, or vice versa. So it's not just femurs and torso, but those are the two most common. So typically, if you have a longer torso and shorter femurs, you're going to be able to stay more upright during the squat. And if you have the opposite, which it sounds like you might, then you have to be more bent over to be able to keep the bar over the middle of your foot during a squat like you want to do, just because of your personal anatomy. So I have this video that I want to play, and I tested it to make sure that this will work, but please somebody let me know. I'm going to put on my headphones to make sure it's playing. And if this doesn't play, if you don't hear the sound, please let me know. This is a good video to look up. It's by Tom Purvis with personaltraining.com. Squats Part 1, Foldability and Proportions. So I have it queued up to the spot that I wanted to play for you at 3 minutes, but it would be a good video to watch as a whole, but I didn't want to spend 5 minutes, 34 seconds on this live. So we'll watch for a couple minutes, listen, and he's going to talk about how the squat changes the way it looks based on different limb lengths, and perhaps that will be helpful for you. So let me know if you can't hear this, and we'll get going. Exactly. Damn it! Of course there's no sound. I had it working too. This figures. Let me... Can you hear it now? Somebody let me know. If you can't, I'm just gonna have to send you to the video. Can you hear it now? Bueller? Okay, well, sorry. I literally tested this before to make sure it would work, and of course, it's not effing working. Wait, I got it. Let me try one more thing, and if this doesn't work, then I will just say it's not working. But I think I got it. I think I had it muted. So somebody tell me, I'm gonna start it fresh from where we started, and then tell me if you can hear it or not.
Heel of your shoe, how much rise is in your shoe. There are also structural variances amongst people. The segmental proportions, where someone could, in proportion to their femur, have a really short tibia, or in proportion to their femur, have a really long tibia, which will influence things very differently. So right now, let's take a look. If I put a very short tibia on this person, you're going to notice that their ability to squat down starts to look like he's leaning really far forward. If this person's tibia was longer, they're just collapsing more. They're not necessarily leaning forward more, and that's going to totally change how it feels on their low back. And they might be going, oh, squats are all in your low back. Yeah, especially when you're built this way. And someone who's built differently, it will feel entirely different. They'll say, no, squats are always in the quads. Why don't you understand this? They don't get that the proportions are critical to this assumption and sensation. So what happens if you're one of these people, and I'm going to exaggerate it, I'm not saying there's anybody exactly like this, but what if your femur was ridiculously long compared to this segment right here? You are never going to be able to squat all the way down. You're never going to be able to fold all the way up.
See how bent over it would be?
In order to get any lower than this, you're probably going to feel like you're falling. Most people with proportions that lean this direction will often say, I can't go any lower. Yet if you check their knee flexion, they have more than that. If you check their hip flexion, they have more than this. But their proportions do not allow them to go any further. Otherwise, they will fall down. If their trunk is short, it makes it even worse. If someone's trunk was so short that they had to put the weight roughly right here, they are bent forward and all they feel is low back and all they feel is hip. If, by contrast, you had someone with proportionally shorter femur, proportionally longer floor to knee, and proportionally longer torso in terms of where they can put the weight, this person could fold up, sit all the way down, and they have no idea why anybody thinks squatting is difficult. This person feels quads more than anything else. Halfway down looks like this to them. This is not getting fatigued because it's not all perpendicular to the ground. Totally different thing. So look again at the extremes. Here is an optimum squatting proportion. And of course, if you don't have any dorsiflexion, it still messes with you. So all of these factors are interdependent. But if I were to have a short trunk or put the bar really low, and a proportionally long femur, and a proportionally short tibia, this person hates squats.
So that sums it up so perfectly. I love that video. So if you want to watch the rest, he talks kind of about dorsiflexion, which is like how well you can bring your toes up. Like, anyways, bottom line is, you can't just say everyone should squat this way. And that goes for almost every lift, deadlifts included, everything. It's going to be different for everybody because they have different levers and different moment arms and things like that, and different proportions. So to be able to keep the bar down the middle of your foot like you want with a squat, if you have, if you have different proportions, it's going to look different for everybody. So you can't just say, well, you just need to keep your chest up. And yeah, you want to keep your chest up as much as you can, but that's going to be easier said than done for some people. And there's a lot of different factors at play. So that's why having a personal instructor who can walk you through what would be the best for your personal body, and not just, we'll look at this squat tutorial. It's different. Like for me, I think I talked about this last week, but I have a particularly long torso and shorter femurs, which makes the squat relatively easy for me. Like you said, it makes it easier to stay upright, and it feels like a good movement, and it's not as difficult it would be for someone who is the opposite of that. Deadlifts are much more challenging for me because with the long torso, and I also have kind of short arms, that bar has to come so far off the floor to lock out that it just takes forever, and it makes it a difficult movement for me. So it doesn't mean if a certain movement is difficult for you and another one's relatively easy, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the way you deadlift or that you're weak or something like that. It just means your body probably wasn't built for that. Yeah, we can always make improvements, we can always get better no matter what, but we are structured in a way that's going to be better for some things than others. So I thought that was a really good video. All right, let me get to some questions here. I know we got some. Let me scroll back up. Take this off. All right. What is a reasonable amount of weight gain in percentage during a reverse diet? When do I know that I'm gaining too much that I should stop increasing calories? So what I usually tell people who are in a lean bulking phase, where they're actually wanting to be in a bit of a surplus to optimally build muscle, is to aim for between about 0.2 to 0.5% of their body weight on average. That's with the intention of building muscle and being in a calorie surplus. So you could say, in theory, then, if you're trying to reverse diet without gaining as much as possible, maybe somewhere between, obviously, staying stable, and then up to that 0.2, 0.3-ish% might be reasonable. But it just kind of depends on what's most important to you, what you're trying to accomplish, how fast you want to feel better versus be able to maintain your weight, and things like that. So like I always say, the faster you increase calories, the faster you're going to feel better, the faster your metabolism is going to improve, the faster your hormones are going to improve, the faster you're going to be able to enjoy more food, but the more likely you are to gain weight. The slower you increase calories, the less likely you are to gain weight, but the longer it's going to take for you to start feeling better and get over some of those struggles. So it's a personal, kind of unique balance for everyone, and there is no one set method, but hopefully that's kind of helpful. Good morning. Let's bring this up, bring this over here. So you said, oh, where'd it go? I'm gonna bring that up too. So 2,300 calories. So if we were going on the smaller end and say 15, so we do 0.85, that would be about 1955 calories. So about a 345 calorie drop would be kind of, personally for me, that would be kind of the minimum I would recommend dropping calories. Now, of course, you can drop a little bit less and do more cardio or vice versa, but just a 200 calorie drop. I'm not saying that you can't lose by making a 200 calorie drop, but I'm saying that you are running the risk of your body not really recognizing the deficit, so to speak, and not making much of a change. And then the worst case scenario is kind of like reverse dieting in reverse, where you keep breaking your calories down slowly and your body just kind of adapts down without really seeing changes in body fat. So I would personally make a bit bigger drop, maybe at least around 300 calories. You know, you could do a little bit more if it's reasonable for you, but you'd always just try and see, but you don't want to stay there too long if it's not working. And like I said, if you want to do 200 but then pound a bunch more cardio, then that's a different way to create a calorie deficit, and that's fine. But and there's no one set answer for everybody. Some people can respond just fine and great on smaller decreases. Some people need really large decreases, much bigger than that, to be able to start seeing results. So it's obviously different for everybody. But I personally like to err on the side of being a little bit more aggressive, and then if you're losing weight too fast, adding calories in, versus the other way around. And it's just really rare for that to happen. So, but you want to see. Currently in a cut after increasing to maintenance for the last year. That's awesome. I'm wondering how consistent I need to be each week. Only one day per week I am hungry. I may eat 300 to 400 over. Continued. Where's the continue? There it is. That day. This is my second cut. I am better prepared now versus the last. Plan to cut for 3 weeks, then break. Is it better to do a cut and then have one day, or do the 3 to 1 with better consistency? So I would just do a refeed approach and take the 1 day of higher calories that you typically know that you're hungry, and just use it for that day. And I mean, if you really wanted to, you could equate calories, and you could take away. So if you took away like 50 calories 6 days a week, that would be 300 calories for that extra day, and you could put that on top. But you could, if it's just 1 day, it's just like a refeed approach. So add in 300-400 calories that 1 day, kind of bring you back closer to rough maintenance for that day, and then just come back down. That would be a decent approach. I often do double refeeds with people, just because with a double refeed, there's a chance you might get a little bit of a hormonal and metabolic benefit too, whereas with a single day, you probably don't. You still get like increased glycogen and things like that, but less likely to have actual impacts of metabolism or hormones for that day. But it's not your daily numbers that matter, it's your weekly average. So if you're going above or below any given day, as long as you work out your average for the week, then you should be good. So did you say how much? No, but I mean, let's say for instance your cutting calories were 1,700. This is just random. If you ate 1,900 one day and 1,600 the next day and 1,600 the next day and then 1,750, and then, you know what I mean? Like, as long as it's averaging out close, and even then we're talking like a range. We don't have to be perfect. We're not trying to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. But if you can get it within a range of, I usually say like 30 to 50 calories on average by the end of the week, then you're on top of it. And if you like to go above and beyond, or above or below any given day because you're less hungry or more hungry, that's fine. And if you know that there's a day you tend to be more hungry, then that's great. Just plan for it that way. Did I get this last part? Is it better to cut and have 1 day over, or do the 3 to 1 with better consistency? Either way, it doesn't matter as long as your average is the same. Now, on the diet break, I do recommend trying to keep the calories up more versus lots of ups and downs, because you want to kind of tell your body that it's used to having higher calories. So if you go way over and then way under and way over and way under, way over, way under, that probably isn't going to do anything for you outside of the mental side of being able to enjoy more food. But I don't think it's going to give you the break in terms of the physiological benefits that could come with it. I don't have research to back that up. It's just my speculation. All right, what else we got here? Yeah, I thought that video was really cool. And yeah, I mean, you can still squat. It's just can be a little bit more challenge, but you can still do it. Yeah, so the beginning of that video that I talked about, he kind of talks about that more, ankle like dorsiflexion, ankle flexibility and stuff like that too, and you can use like you can get actual squat shoes. They have a little bit of a heel to help, or even just put like plates underneath your heels to help. And of course, if you can get a little bit more flexibility in the ankle, that of course would be a good thing. Do you think 3-day diet breaks can be effective? I know you recommend a minimum of 1 to 2 week diet break. Could you do a 3-day and be helpful? Yeah, I mean 3 days. It's more of a to me. Like I personally, my definition of refeed versus diet break is a diet break is a week or more. A refeed is less than that. Now, I mean, you could make some arguments that like 5 days, 6 days, you know, that's probably still diet break, but it's kind of the same thing. Diet breaks are just basically extended refeeds. So it's kind of semantics. It's just kind of about the length. But a 3-day refeed, which is what 3 days I would definitely call a refeed, can be beneficial. I think it's just you have a little less time to adapt. But you could have a 3, and there's no law that says that you have to do it in a week's span either. Like it's convenient and it makes it nice to be able to say, okay, like 5-2, 5-2, 5-2. But and you could technically do 4-3 as well, but you don't even have to do 4-3. You could literally do like 5-3, 6-3, 7-3. You know what I mean? Like you could do 7 days of lower, 3 days of higher, and repeat that. If you don't care when your refeeds are going to fall, a lot of people want them on the weekend because we like to be more flexible and things. But yeah, there's no rules. And you definitely consecutive days of higher calories are beneficial, both from a physiological and psychological perspective. I don't know if this is a question. Wake up, have black coffee and unflavored. Ooh, that sounds horrible. And then I have my real food. Well, define real food. Protein powder is food, but again, we're talking semantics here. But hey, I mean, oh wait. What matters more than anything, Paul, is your total numbers for the day. So however you want to split it up is fine. It doesn't matter. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So however you want to split up your macros for the day is fine. And there's a lot of research, a lot of research that has shown that whether you intermittent fast or do several small meals or one big meal or whatever, if your total calories and total protein are the same, whether you prefer to eat like in a restricted eating window or anything else, doesn't really matter. The reason that intermittent fasting works well for a lot of people is because with the shortened eating window period, you therefore eat less calories because you spend less of the day eating. But it's not because of intermittent fasting being like magic or anything like that. It's just because you consume less calories, which is fine. Like if that's a sustainable method for you, then that's great. I kind of intermittent fast myself. I don't do it intentionally. It's just how I prefer to eat. I'm not hungry in the morning. You know, I have a coffee in the morning and then I eat lunch around 11:30, 12. And then I'm usually done eating by 9. So that's like a 9-10 hour eating window or so, but it's just because that's how I like to eat. I'm not doing it for like the intermittent fasting benefits. No, it doesn't matter as long as your numbers are the same. You're good to go. Let me see. What do we got? Oh, you're good, man. You're good. How long do you think it's appropriate to reverse diet after yo-yo dieting for about 2 years for more weight loss down the line? I would do a minimum of 6 months after 2 years. 2 years isn't a lot, but it's still, I mean, it depends how severe it is and how frequent it is and stuff like that too. And there is no like magic guide. Like there's no handbook that says, okay, if you do it this way, then you're guaranteed to see results again, right? I'm just kind of going off of experience and speculation. But I typically recommend at least 6 months to make sure you're in a good spot to diet again. But I'll say that the longer you do it, the better off you're going to be. And if you diet too fast, you're going to undo things and you don't want to do that. So I always encourage to wait as long as possible. So I say minimum of 6 months, but if you can go 9 months, a year, like that's great. Like the longer you can stay out of a deficit, the better off you're going to be and be able to enjoy the benefits of not having to diet all the dang time too. Thank you. They're both. The one's not better than the other. They're both different benefits. I don't. And again, there's no like, to my knowledge, anyways. There's certainly no research that looked at refeeds versus diet breaks. I mean, if I had gun to my head, you have to make a decision between the two, then I would probably say diet breaks, just for the extended period of time to allow a little bit more adaptation to the higher calories and less cardio. Whereas refeeds are more like quick little hits, may have some benefit, but we don't really know how much. And but I usually use both in tandem. Most of the time now, I have people on refeeds and then taking diet breaks, and I think they're both great strategies. All right, let me see. Apparently, I missed a question. Let me go back. X bit rates question. Was it this one? Because I did answer that. Was there another one? I don't see anything else. Good morning. I got that one too. I think I got them all. But if I missed something, just please retype the question and I'll answer it again. Or answer it for the first time. Right, I don't think it's magic, just my eating method. It was just, I've heard protein is only fat soluble, which I might not fully understand. Didn't know if they needed to be consumed together. No, they don't have to be consumed together. You're good. Okay, cool. Might have just missed it. All right, let me go back to the other questions I have. And let me get rid of that. What else do we have here? All right. I'm worried about more weight gain now that cold weather moves in and upcoming holidays. I'm week 29 of a reverse. Any tips? Love that you're on week 29. Actually, the question above was kind of together with it. So this person, I'll just handle them both kind of at the same time. So Jennifer here. Appetite is increasing exponentially, she says, through the reverse diet, which is very, very common. I'll touch on that. And at first was making smaller changes, but then just got super hungry. So you can see here that at first weight held pretty well with the small increases and actually saw a drop here, and then big increase in calories, and now weight has jumped up a couple of pounds. So, I mean, if you think about it, Jennifer, I'll handle this part first. You really haven't gained much weight. You've gained about 2 pounds. So I know we always tend to compare to our lowest weights, but you started at 136.9, you're now at 138.8. So that's 2 pounds in 6 weeks. I mean, that's not bad. And keep in mind too, when you start a reverse after a cut, most of the first pound or two is probably going to be things like water weight, glycogen, things like that. That being said, these are very large increases, and my speculation would be that you're going to start gaining weight pretty fast if you keep this up. So that's something to consider. And like I said, like I always say, it just depends on what's most important to you, right? Do you want to get rid of the hunger faster, or do you want to be able to maintain fat better? That's the big question you have to ask yourself. You kind of asked down here if it was more the all-in approach. Not really, because you're still tracking and you're still monitoring. It's kind of like the balance, like I said in that previous video, I said there's a balance between the two. It doesn't have to be all in, just eat till your heart's content and don't pay attention, or make small changes. You can make large changes too, but then you have to accept that you're still going to gain weight, but it's less than just going completely all in. But unfortunately, the fastest way to start feeling less hungry is to gain body fat back. And that's part of why your body's doing this. Your body wants you to gain the weight back. You're below your body fat set point. Your body doesn't like this. It wants you to get that fat back to protect against starvation. It wants to protect at all costs. It's the body's self-defense mechanism, and it's very real. And I talk about it all the time. And almost anytime someone's stopping a cut and going into reverse, I make the speech. I say, okay, you're done now. It feels like the hard part's over. It's not. I'm not trying to scare, but this is the hardest part. The early stage of the reverse diet, by far the hardest part of the process. You're going to be more hungry, probably more tired, probably less motivated, because now you're not even going after fat loss anymore. You just want to eat more food, and your body's fighting you hard, and it's difficult, and you're going to be freaking ravenous. And it just becomes a big challenge. So you have to fight back, and just know that as stupid as this might sound and as ridiculous as it might sound, sometimes we need to remind ourselves and say, just because I'm hungry doesn't mean I have to eat more. I actually have a video though coming up here next week talking about the safest way to overeat, which is eat more protein. And there's actually some pretty crazy research on this where people ate a lot more food through protein and didn't gain any weight, any body fat, and even lost some in some instances, because it's just so powerful and it's so it has so many processes to go through, and it's the most filling too. So it'll help you feel full if you really are that hungry. So there's a difference between being hungry and wanting to eat a bunch of junk too and having cravings. There are differences between the two, but no, first of all, Jennifer, I don't think that the weight increases you've seen so far are anything crazy. However, I do believe that it will start coming up pretty dang fast here, especially if you keep making increases like you have been. So that's something to consider. And then you also kind of go back to her question about, okay, colder weather is coming up, and now you're probably going to be moving around less, be sitting around, possibly wanting to eat some junk and stuff like that. And, what's the best way to kind of help with this? And like I already mentioned, with control the eating during this time, remind yourself of what you're doing and what's most important to you. Focus on protein, and determining what's your own personal balance. And then that's the other thing too, like, okay, cold weather's coming up in a reverse, especially in Esther's case, where she's been reverse dieting a long time, so she's probably in a much better spot now hormonally. If you're going to be moving a lot less and you know this, then you can make some small reductions in calories. This is kind of one of the other questions that I have coming up, is if you should ever reduce calories during a reverse, which is normally not so much, but there are some instances where it makes sense. And if you want to keep stable as much as possible, and you're going to be burning less calories, then you can make some small reductions to your total intake, like maybe around 5% of your calories, drop it back. And no matter what, you're still paying attention and seeing how things go. So it's kind of like worrying about what's going to happen before it actually happens. And I don't mean that negatively at all. It's just always remember, like, if you continue to monitor, you're going to see what happens, and you may not see any change at all. Or maybe you don't make any reductions in calories and you keep things the same, but you don't increase calories. And then the reduction in activity becomes your reverse diet for that next week. Does that make sense? Because now you're expending less, but you're not increasing, so you're still getting a net change to the positive, to the surplus side, which is what a reverse diet would be. And so if you're really concerned about it, make a small reduction back, not much, maybe around 5%. You don't want to make too big of a drop. If you find that you're starting to gain a little bit too fast because you're burning so many less calories, I mean, you either have to increase activity in other areas of your life or just reduce your calories a little bit, but not too much. You don't want to like put yourself in a deficit. So, and then with the holidays, the biggest thing is one day here, there's going to be nothing, right? If you eat to your heart's content on Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's, okay, that's 3 days out of the next 3 months, right? Like, that's not going to make a difference. It's nothing, right? Where it becomes a problem is, well, the holidays are up, so now I'm just gonna, eat to my heart's content every single day through the holidays. Then that becomes an issue, right? So enjoy the days for what they are and don't worry about it. And I fully encourage people to just have whatever they want, eat as much as they want, and drink as much as they want on days like Christmas, and understand that it's never gonna make or break anything. But you just don't want to fall into the all or nothing mindset that so many people fall into through the holidays, especially after having been dieting, which you haven't been, which is good. So hopefully that was all helpful. I wanted to see if there was something else here. I think that was it. I like that you're taking the average here. That's really good. But yeah, just know that you're not alone, and it's normal to feel as hungry as you are during this period. Very, very normal. And this is why so many people, everyone struggles after the diet after the diet. It is just so challenging. All right. Let me see. We'll go back here. Thank you, April, so much for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. That's awesome. Yes. Diet breaks every 3 to 4 weeks. That's a good strategy. I started my cut on 1,800 calories. Now I'm at 1,500. Lost 15 pounds. Can't thank you enough. That's awesome. Well done. It sounds like you got a good plan. It sounds like things are going really well. And diet breaks are so helpful. Not just for the physiological. Sorry, my dog is going crazy. I think we got a roofing quote coming by. Not sure if you could hear that or not. But Yeah, I love it. Great job. Is a healthy approach to not count carbs and fats, but keep protein on check for a bulk? Sure. I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by healthy approach, but a strategy that I take a lot, and I'm probably gonna do a video about this at some point. I keep saying that, and I don't do it because I find other things I want to talk about instead. But the lower your calories are, the more value there is in tracking exact macros. The higher your calories are, there's less need to be super precise with things. So what I mean by that is, like, if calories are really low and energy is low and things like that, you want to make sure that you have enough fat, like a sufficient amount of fat for things like hormones and digestion and nutrient uptake. You want to make sure you have enough carbs for performance and energy and things like that. But as calories come up, you're going to have a sufficient amount pretty much no matter what. And there's a lot of research that's shown, for the most part, whether you prefer more carbs or more fat doesn't really matter as long as calories and protein are equated. So a good, more flexible approach, especially as calories get higher, is to just give yourself a calorie target and a protein target and make sure you're hitting those, and then just let carbs and fats fall however they will. It's not a bad idea to still monitor them, just to make sure you aren't airing way to one side. Like all of a sudden you're only eating, like, you know, this is extreme, but say you're eating like 10, 15 grams of fat a day or something. You're like, okay, like I'm being a little too flexible to one side. So it's good to just check on it at least occasionally, just to see where your numbers are at, but it doesn't really matter for the most part. And then this allows you to, you know, keep things in check and keep in a good place while allowing for more flexibility. And you can do it in a cut too. It's just you're going to want to pay attention to how your body is responding. And yeah, actually, I'm kind of doing that right now myself in my cut. But if you notice that one's getting really low, then you might want to start giving yourself some targets. Very welcome. Yeah, I mean, let me see. So you only drink coffee in the morning. I feel like I need to have a shake at least to kickstart some muscle protein synthesis with overnight fast to minimize muscle loss during a cut. What do you think? So yes, if we wanted to split hairs and talk about what's the most optimal way to do things, I completely agree with you. You would want to get that extra protein spike in to try to get like a fourth protein synthesis. Now, am I worried about losing a bunch of muscle in a cut by not having it? No. But if I wanted to do things as optimally as possible, I would. And that's what I did do in my 2 years that I was preparing to do a physique show, and I wanted to do everything I could to just be as dialed in as possible. I forced myself to drink a protein shake when I woke up, even though I didn't like it. I wasn't hungry at all. Sometimes I literally feel sick by doing it, just because I'm just so not hungry. And but I did it just to optimize things as much as possible. But now that I'm just kind of trying to, look decent and don't have any large goals or anything, and I'm just kind of trying to keep roughly stable with things, I'm not worried about those smaller details. But definitely agree that if you wanted to look at how to best do things, I recommend spacing out your protein-containing meals at least 3, preferably 4 or 5 hours apart, and try to get at least four in. So if you ate like 4 or 5 meals, like four-ish hours apart, that would, in my opinion, probably be the most optimal. I could go into more details of why I think that, but I'm not going to. Actually, I have a video if you are interested in that topic itself. Let me see, what did I call it? Colin DeWaay, meal timing maybe? Yeah, that was an older one, but it's the same kind of a thing. Here we go, this one. How often, so search my name, how often to eat to build muscle, and it'll go into kind of the science behind that and why I think that. If interested. If not, then don't. If I'm around 20% body fat, how often should I try refeeds or even have a flex meal once or twice a week? Thanks. Well, it doesn't really matter based on body fat. I mean, I think, I guess I shouldn't say that. If you're more towards the obese side, which you're not, but if you are like more towards the obese side, I think refeeds might have a little bit less value because you have more like energy reserve, so to speak, because that's what your body fat is. It's basically energy reserve, and your body uses that energy when calories get low, and that's why it uses it up, basically, for lack of a better way to explain that. The leaner you get, you have less energy supply, so refeeds might be a little bit more beneficial in theory. However, there's still psychological benefits of the refeeds no matter what, and it still isn't going to hurt anything. And if nothing else, sometimes you can equate calories. I do that frequently. So like say your normal cutting calories would be 2,000. Well, you could do a double refeed and then take away 100 and some calories 5 days a week and give those extra calories to the 2 days. Now your weekly average is the same, but you still have a bump up in calories and carbs for those 2 days. And I think there can be some benefit to that. Again, never studied, just my personal experience. You're not necessarily wrong. I mean, you could always do like BCAAs too, just to get some fluids in and help with the protein breakdown. But it's just not that. It's just not that serious. You know what I mean? As long as your total numbers are the same, for the most part, that's what really matters. So as long as you're getting a sufficient amount of protein. Again, it depends on how much you care about doing things as optimally as possible versus sustainability. That's a unique benefit for everybody. And I've gone through plenty of times in my life where it's like, I just want to do everything as optimally as possible to get the best results possible. And I'm not in that phase of my life anymore. Right. Same thing. That's why I kind of mentioned BCAAs. I appreciate it. Love it. All right. Sorry, I'm not reading all these. I know you guys are just kind of talking to each other, which is great. I love it. Was your thought about a 30-day cut with 1 week refeed for people with metabolism issues? Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a strategy. I have a video that I did a while ago talking about some newer diet break research. So the one that's always talked about or usually talked about with regards to diet breaks is the Matador study where they did 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And there was a new one that came out that was done with, I believe it was 3 weeks of dieting with 1 week of diet break, and that study didn't show the same results as the Matador study. So there's wild speculation of what it means, and of course people take that and just go to the extreme all the time and say, well, see, diet breaks are stupid, they do nothing for you. Well, no, not necessarily. Perhaps there's something about 2 weeks versus one that makes a big difference. Perhaps it's because in the Matador study they were obese, and in the other study they were athletes. Maybe there's something to do with that. But I find personally, time and time again, that people who take 2 week breaks tend to respond better coming back to a cut than when you take a 1 week break. Doesn't mean a 1 week break is worthless. It doesn't mean that it can't help. Doesn't mean that that's going to be the same for everybody. It's just kind of a correlation that I've noticed over time. So, it depends on if you like to have the schedule, the structure, or if you want to just see how things are going. And once you start feeling a little bit worse, you can start throwing in diet breaks for maybe 2 weeks. But it's not a bad approach by any stretch of the imagination. It could be good. So it's kind of up to you. No problem. Thank you. All right, let's get to the other questions I've got over here. I think that might have been on this post. I had 2 different posts because I had to reschedule. I think that was it. How do I go back? All right, let's see. What's up, Big Al? I love that. All right, so nearing the end of my weight loss journey, I'm going to lose the last 5 pounds in about 4 weeks or so. I'm currently doing 45 minutes of list cardio Monday through Saturday and want to incorporate 1 HIIT session per week to help accelerate the weight loss. So if I do HIIT session on Saturday, do I still do my 45-minute list on Saturday as well? Or do I simply replace the Saturday list with HIIT? If you're trying to if you're adding the HIIT session to increase calorie expenditure to help with the last push of this fat loss, I would add it in addition to what you normally do. So that doesn't mean you have to necessarily do both sessions on Saturday, because you said 5 days, right? Let me make sure I get this right. Monday through Saturday. So I was going to say, if it was 5 days, it would make more sense. With 6 days, I really do recommend that everyone take at least one full rest day. But it's the last leg of your cut, so to speak. So what I would maybe do in that case is bump your low intensity steady state to Sunday, and then do your HIIT on Saturday, just so that you're not doing both and not too fatigued for that day. Doesn't mean you couldn't, or maybe you can do a morning and afternoon session. So you could do like LISS in the morning and a HIIT in the afternoon. I probably wouldn't do it the other way around, because the HIIT's going to drain you much more than the LISS is. So by the time you do the LISS, you might be so fatigued it'd be really hard to do. But I would add in an addition. You could make the switch, but it's probably not going to make as big of a difference. And that would probably be my suggestion in that scenario. Keep in mind, HIIT can be helpful, but it can also, especially when calories have been low, you've been dieting for a long time, you've been losing weight, energy is low, it really can run you into the ground pretty hard. And what you want to watch out for is to make sure you're not doing less in other areas. So like you add the HIIT session, but now you're just so exhausted and drained from it that now you're laying around on the couch all day and hardly moving around because you're so exhausted, and now you're going to burn less calories than had you just not even done it. You know what I mean? So something to watch for. And last one here. I can't scroll down anymore, so let me get rid of me. This I kind of addressed. Should you ever pull calories in a reverse if you overshot your goal and picked up slightly more weight any given week? I'm not going to read this all because I remember what you had to say. So basically, you saw about a 1% increase last week. But yeah, I mean, in your situation, man, you've seen everything's been going great. I definitely wouldn't worry about that in 1 week. And I wouldn't make a reduction in calories in a reverse after 1 week anyway. And let me go back to this. So if you continue to see it, then you might want to dial it back a little bit, but it just kind of depends. And I like to avoid reducing calories in a reverse diet as much as possible. That doesn't mean there's never scenarios when we do it, but especially early on in the process, you got to give your body some time, and always remember to compare to the week one and not your last week too. So like if you've lost 5 pounds through the last few weeks, but then you gain 2 pounds in 1 week, well, you're not up 2 pounds, you're down 3 pounds. You know what I mean? It's like I said before in the live, that we always compare to our best of the best of the best, but we never have a tendency to start from the beginning, which is what you want to do with the reverse. So I wouldn't worry about it at this point. If it keeps happening, then you can dial your calories back some. You don't want to go too much, just enough to kind of keep things stable. And at a certain point too, in a reverse, you're probably going to find like there's like this threshold of calories that eventually just becomes too much for the body. Even if everything's going great for a long time, then eventually you just start gaining. Even like on a 50 calorie increase, all of a sudden you gain and you hold it and you gain and you gain and you gain and you gain and you gain. You're like, okay, well, there's something about that just going over that a little bit of a hump that, okay, now let's dial it back again, maybe 100 calories or 5% tops or whatever, just to try to stabilize. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much, especially in your case right now. And like you said, really focus on this stuff about how you're getting like so much stronger and feeling better and all these really good signs that come with it, and don't get too attached to that number on the scale. Yeah, like you basically said, you need to go over the fixation with the scale, especially if waist is the same too, or waist is the same, I mean. And all the, yep, I mean, you got it, man. You got it. It's just hard sometimes to not get too focused on that scale. It's very normal. Is it normal to feel hungrier during a diet break? Not normal, not abnormal. Recently, I increased calories from 16 to 19, and I felt hungrier, like I couldn't get enough food. So some people find that they are hungrier during a diet break. Other people find that they are much less hungry. It's like you get that break and your body's just like, thank you. I'm going to stop, fighting you so hard now. And other people, it's like, okay, you give me more. I want more and more and more and more. So that's why I say it's not normal, but it's not abnormal either. I hear those questions a lot about everything. Like, is it normal? And it's like, well, I mean, there's really no such thing as normal. It's all unique to the individual, and we're all a bit different. And it's one of those things too, you got to watch out for. Like, diet breaks can be really helpful for a lot of people, but if you're someone who does a diet break and then ends up being ravenously hungry and way overshoots your calories and gains a bunch of weight each time you try to do it, then, well, maybe they're not the best for you. You know what I mean? They're not a necessity, but they are helpful. All good, Jake. Let me know if you have anything, because I think I just wrapped up the last question too. I'll give it a minute or two here and see if anybody's got anything else. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything over here. I don't think I did. Nope. Wait, that's not the right one. Well, I don't know where it went. I'm pretty sure I got them all. All right, anything else? I guess while we wait, I did want to mention with my Instagram, if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you do so. I am documenting my cutting phase on Instagram. So if you've been following me for a while on YouTube, I have done a few different types of, like, what do you call it? Cutting in reverse, like where I take you through the process of actually showing you what kind of changes I make and everything, and saying, okay, like, here's what my macros were, here's how much weight I lost, here's how things are looking, things like that. I'm not going to be doing that this time, but I am going to be doing that on my Instagram. So I started my cut 2 weeks ago, made a post here, all right, here's 2 weeks of progress, and talked about, the amount of weight that I've lost, and drops and measurements and stuff like that, what my macros are, how much cardio, and how things are feeling, and things to consider. You can see here's what my weight was doing, waist measurements, macros, things like that. So if you want to keep up with that stuff and you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you do so. Turn on notifications, because Instagram doesn't show my posts to anybody. And if you are interested in online coaching, head to my website, ColinDeWaayTraining.com, fill out the coaching application, and I will shoot a video getting back to you. And if you don't see a video from me within 24 hours, make sure that you check your junk mail, because it goes in there quite frequently. Yeah, it definitely can. That's one of the benefits of just diet sodas in general. I mean, it can give you kind of, like, if you're craving some sweets, it can give you a little bit of a reprieve there. The carbonation kind of helps you feel full. It does hydrate. I know caffeine is dehydrating or a diuretic, but only in very large amounts, and it's not going to be more than the amount of fluids that you're taking in. Yes. I do talk about walking. So I talk about it in my videos all the time about how beneficial walking is, and how much it helps with the fat loss phase. So yes, I decreased my calories, and yes, I increased my cardio through stationary bike mostly and some incline walking. But I also am now going for 5-ish, 40-ish minute walks per week to help. Super helpful. So my wife and I go on these walks with the dog. Like Cesar Millan says, good for the dog, good for the human. And yeah. All right, I'm gonna call it. I think that's it. So thanks for tuning in. And if you ever have any other questions, you can just hit me up anytime. And I will have a new video out probably Tuesday. Maybe Monday if things go really well this weekend, but probably Tuesday. So take care and have a good weekend.